And so essentially looking back now, I know that I was a gladiator in the wrong arena for a few years. And just to be clear, I wouldn't have changed a thing on my journey because everything unfolded the way it's supposed to, I believe. And that's probably one of the reasons why we are where we are now. And we've had a lot of success in a short amount of time with the new venture, my new identity, so forth. But look, you have to set goals, and goals will give you purpose and they'll give you enthusiasm. And even if you don't necessarily love what you're doing, first of all, I encourage everyone to find what you love. But if you're in a situation right now where it just is what it is, like maybe you're in between stuff, set goals, because goals generate desire and they'll keep you excited and enthusiastic, right? So for example, let's just say someone's trying to lose some weight. That's not always fun, but maybe you have a goal, you want to fit into a certain dress for your wedding or for your kid's wedding or whatever the case may be. Although it might not be so fun to give up that cheesecake, just knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel, you have a specific goal, it keeps you on track and keeps you inspired.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff Lakusta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia, Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Nadia, it's great to see you.
Oh my God, yes, I know we're going to have time on Tuesday. I'm so excited. I've been following and reading all of your messages. I'm part of your mobile text crew.
Great, I love it. I love it. I'm excited.
So, one of the most interesting things about Craig, among everything else, Jeff, is that Craig just ran the marathon.
Congrats. New York Marathon?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
It looks like this is, something that you do pretty regularly. What number marathon was this for you?
That was number 7.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was never a runner before until a few years back. I always like to lift weights and so forth, but kind of at a dark season a few years back, I stumbled upon running and I just fell in love with it. I'm like romantic about it. I love it because it's so pure. It's really just you versus you, and obviously that voice in your head. And I think a lot of the lessons that it takes to be successful at running are transferable to life as well.
Let's start right there. What do you mean by that? Like dropping in it at the first minute.
In regards to being successful, there's a lot of people that come to me now because they want to reinvent themselves and so forth, or they want to do something else. And they think that they're an imposter, or because they don't have experience, they have no right to speak about it. And what I always like to remind them is that they've been successful in other places. It wasn't the place that made them successful. It was them. And a lot of those characteristics are transferable. And in regards to this specific example with running, I mean, what does it really take? What is required to run a good, fast marathon? Well, it takes a commitment. It takes discipline. It takes grit, determination, perseverance, a positive attitude. And I would say that those are traits that would make you successful in anything that you wanted to do or become in life.
I don't know you, Jeff. I needed to hear this morning now.
Amen. we were saying, you have left kind of the stable, successful career that you had in Wall Street. And Nadia and I are here in stable, successful jobs in Google. But I think that we have this passion for podcasting, for leadership, for many other things that I think make us both look at somebody like you as an inspiration. And I would love to talk about that because I think it connects to what you're saying about knowing yourself and pursuing your true passions. But it's interesting to decide, is myself, somebody who is successful in the corporate, the big system, or somebody who's going to go out and be entrepreneurial and really make my own world? How did you think about knowing what your true self actually wanted and then taking the leap?
Yeah, so great question. When I reinvented myself in the pandemic, after 13 years on Wall Street and so forth, and really a totally different identity, I realized that to step into this was going to take a whole lot, and it was a lot different than what I was doing. But really, what I was doing for the first time in my life is I was arriving at me. I always was obsessed with personal development and motivational stuff. I just never thought I was worthy of turning that into a career. And when I got really quiet in the pandemic, it was kind of a forced pivot at that moment, but I made the choice to not subscribe to Tiger King and a bottle of wine a day. No judgment. I just wanted to be a little bit more productive with my time. And when I got quiet and really connected, I started getting these downloads, and I kind of tapped into a higher frequency and a vibration. I was like, of course, I'm obsessed with personal development. And I think this is more than just a passion. I think this is an assignment. And so when I started to get clarity on what I would like to do with my life, if I don't have to worry about anything else, like for example, for the listeners right now, if you're thinking, oh, this sounds great, I wonder what I want to do. Just think about like, what would you want to wake up and do tomorrow if you could do anything that you'd want to do for years? I don't mean like a quick hobby. And if you don't have to worry about money or anything like that. And so for me, it was so simple. It was personal development. But that's not enough. You have to turn that into a thriving business. And entrepreneurship is different because, and there's a chapter in my book where I talk about the truth about entrepreneurship. You know, when you look on social media, it's a lot of glitz and glam, it looks very sexy, and it is those things. But you better negotiate the price in advance because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of mental fortitude. It takes a lot of guts, courage. You got to be able to have thick skin, never get too high, never get too low. It's unpredictable and so forth. And I'm not trying to scare anybody because it is 100% worth the reward. But you have to figure out a lot of things along the way. And then obviously you get to a place where you can hire, scale, grow, and begin to work smarter and not necessarily harder and so forth. But entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, even though it's like glamorized these days. And I want to be responsible saying that. But for me, when you love what you do, like I'm obsessed with this stuff in case you guys can tell, when you have a problem now, it's more solution oriented. Okay, what's the fix? And it's almost exciting when you have setbacks or challenges and so forth. Whereas when I had a problem in my previous life or identity, it was like, damn, like it was heartbreaking. So when you love what you do, the resistance will be there because especially if you're playing big, but you just turned into more solution oriented.
How do you?
I do want to ask you a question, Craig. And in the meantime, I'm looking outside because in New York, I know you and I have the same view, actually, Craig, from following your stories. The river is magical today.
You're on the East River?
Yeah, no, west. Wait, are you east?
Yeah, I'm on the East River.
Oh, I'm on the west.
West
So
side,
we
yeah.
have the same view reversed.
Mhm.
So I love what you said, and I love a lot of your narratives and your wording. I mean, clearly everything you said, even the fact that it's your 7th marathon, we could dwell into that since this is year number 7. However, you did still spend 13 years on Wall Street, and I would love for a minute to go there because 13 years is a lot of time.
Mhm.
So how did you make it through those 13 years? Because you were not in an industry that you can just coast. We all know that Wall Street is an industry that demands a lot of you. I would assume that you were in the office probably at 7 a.m. I mean, I don't know all the things that we hear, those rumors, if they're real, but what was pulling you through it so that you made it for those 13 years?
I've never been asked that question before, and I really respect it. For me, I'm a big believer in do a thing, do it well. No matter what it is that you're doing, if it's brushing your teeth or cleaning your place, or let's just say for the listeners right now, you're at a job you don't necessarily love. Do it to the best of your ability. And when you operate with that desire and that work ethic and that energy, that will turn into something great. Somehow someone will notice you, someone will see you or something. And so, for a while I enjoyed Wall Street until I didn't. And then once I didn't, I would have to keep myself motivated, keep myself inspired and so forth. And that wasn't always easy. But it's that mentality that the camera's always on, like leadership, right? Whether you have employees underneath you, which I did, or people that look up to you, you always give it everything you got. And so essentially looking back now, I know that I was a gladiator in the wrong arena for a few years. And just to be clear, I wouldn't have changed a thing on my journey because everything unfolded the way it's supposed to, I believe. And that's probably one of the reasons why we are where we are now. And we've had a lot of success in a short amount of time with the new venture, my new identity, so forth. But look, you have to set goals, and goals will give you purpose and they'll give you enthusiasm. And even if you don't necessarily love what you're doing, first of all, I encourage everyone to find what you love. But if you're in a situation right now where it just is what it is, like maybe you're in between stuff, set goals, because goals generate desire and they'll keep you excited and enthusiastic, right? So for example, let's just say someone's trying to lose some weight. That's not always fun, but maybe you have a goal, you want to fit into a certain dress for your wedding or for your
Mm.
kid's wedding or whatever the case may be. Although it might not be so fun to give up that cheesecake, just knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel, you have a specific goal, it keeps you on track and keeps you inspired.
I
Mm.
would love to unpack that kind of motivate yourself, inspire yourself that you're picking up. Because I have this theory that we are all on this path to realize how important what you're saying is. And it's hard because actually the systems that we grow up in school, college, then you get your first job, you're trying to climb the ladder. There's so much change that happens and is built into your own life. But I have found in my own career that there's a very specific moment where I was like, shit, I don't think anyone's going to inspire me now. Like, all the self-built moments of motivation are past. I need to start creating my own motivation and inspiration.
Yeah.
And I resonate so much with what you're saying, but I'm curious if this was something that you always had innately, or if you can remember your own moment of going, oh shit, I'm going to have to inspire myself here because nobody's building the perfect life for me.
Right. Yeah. So after college, when I graduated, I didn't have a compass. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was always like immature and I had potential, but I was never super motivated, if I'm being honest. And then after college, I ended up going to Wall Street. I was always infatuated with stocks and so forth, and I was ambitious and I was motivated by money at that season of life. And so I stumbled upon Wall Street, but simultaneously at the same time, when I was a fish out of water and I was really looking to find myself and I didn't have experience and there's a lot of people doing really well and maybe I was a bit intimidated, I started turning to personal development. And I remember going to YouTube and looking at videos of motivational speakers. And ironically, a lot of those cats are now my friends and they've been on the podcast and so forth, but they really got me motivated. And then I stumbled upon NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and I sought after a mentor and I started to work with him. And I was just blown away that I could actually reprogram my mind. I can elevate my self worth. I can develop confidence. I could build rapport with relationships. And I just had this mentality that like no one's coming to save me. If I want to create a life that I love and so forth and do a lot of great stuff, then I need to create the best version of myself. And that's not an outside job. That's an inside job. And it's like we were talking about marathons earlier, right? So that, physical fitness is obviously important to run marathons. But I think what's the most important thing is mental fitness. And I encourage all your listeners to make that a non-negotiable every single day, carve out a little bit of time. And to be a little bit more specific, I would even encourage you to start your day with a little bit of mental fitness and set the tone.
Can you expand on this concept of the mental fitness, Craig? And I want to piggyback with one thing you said. You said sometimes the place where you're at, it is what it is. And I do want to acknowledge that we are in an economy that is very hard. And sometimes people, even people that are very driven, that have a lot of ideas, they need to make count with the paycheck that they get. They need to make count with their mortgage and their family's responsibilities. So not everyone, maybe at any point in time, can just take off and follow their dreams. And for me, what you just said about the mental fitness is even more important for those people. Like, how do you keep your mental fitness when you are in an environment that you cannot necessarily leave at that time you're in it, yet you have big goals, yet you have big dreams, and you have a bigger North Star that you want to get to? How can the two be together at the same time?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a big believer in burning the ships. Like for me, I had to really put all my energy into CLS, my brand, to make it work and make it work big. Because I knew that if I still had energy in the Wall Street thing when I was trying to get this up and running, I wouldn't be all in. So that's for me. But I also want to be very responsible. I know that there's a lot of people that are listening right now that have bills to pay. Maybe they have certain responsibilities that I didn't, like kids and so forth. And I totally appreciate that. So you want to keep yourself inspired, but also let's get very intentional. Can we create an extra hour a day to work on a side hustle or work on our dreams or put ourselves out there? I'm a big believer in journaling. And if you can do that, I believe within 90 days, you can build yourself a runway and you could have some great ideas, have some stuff going, and you can have a plan that you could begin to execute. So that will also keep you really excited while you're still at maybe your 9 to 5 that doesn't necessarily light up your soul. It's funny, I dropped an episode today actually on our podcast, a bonus episode about me talking about practical ways that you can leave your 9 to 5. Probably not a coincidence about this conversation right now. And so, again, I want to be really responsible for the listeners. We're not saying quit your job today and don't have a plan, but carve out some time, whether it's 30 minutes or maybe an hour a day. Work on your side hustle, put together a vision. What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to become? Let's reverse engineer it. And then at least while you're doing your other thing that doesn't necessarily light your soul, it keeps you excited about the bigger picture.
I love that, Craig, because I think there's actually plenty of advice out there that says follow your passion, drop what you're doing, go. And that does feel like dangerous, out of touch with reality advice, to
Yep.
be honest. And what you're saying is basically build yourself that next thing, that net to catch you, the life that you want to live, and then jump into that while you're continuing to try your hardest at whatever you're doing right now. But what did that look like for you? What was enough of a net to catch you from jumping from Wall Street, where I assume the pay is fantastic, the networking opportunities are incredible. I mean, there's quite a high bar if you're trying to get to the same degree of what
True.
Wall Street might offer.
Yeah.
So what did that look like?
I think everybody's case is unique, but mine specifically because I put this all together in the lockdown when literally the world shut down. And I know most people were doing some other things during that time period, probably trying to keep themselves busy and so forth. I just had this mindset like when I got quiet, I realized how miserable I had been and so out of alignment. And it occurred to me like, what's the point of even like going back? Like I'm not even alive. I'm just existing. And so I got very specific on what I wanted to do, and I started to get clarity. And I built this vision for myself with like a 10-lane highway, with each lane of the highway representing a different way to make an impact and also monetize speaking,
Mhm.
coaching, book deal, podcasts, all the things, coaching, TED Talk. And then I reverse engineered it. So for me, I had a little bit of extra time because the pandemic had it kind of created that forced pivot for me. But make no mistake about it, I made every second count. I mean, I got this thing up and running fast. I'm a big believer in that it doesn't take time, it just takes alignment. So I guess my case is a little bit unusual because I didn't have the other thing going on. But to be honest with you, when I shut down my office in the pandemic, I thought we had 2 weeks. And people often ask me, like, weren't you scared to step into something totally new? You had no followers, no connections, no nothing. You had a stable job. And for me, I was so petrified of going back that my biggest fear was the lockdown would end and we'd have to go back before I got this thing up and running. And so I just worked really, really, really hard. I really focused and I didn't procrastinate. I took inspired action. And one other thing that was really good that I did, and there's a whole chapter in the book about this, is I allowed myself to be less than perfect. And I took a lot of messy action
Mm.
and I put myself out there and I wasn't afraid to look silly and so forth. And so I got after it. But to be fair, I had a little bit of extra time because the world shut down.
Mm. Well, I am very excited to read your book. I'm definitely going to buy it and I want to dwell into it because it's so interesting. Okay, I'm going to drop one of my Nadia bombs. This whole industry of motivational speakers and all these Instagram millionaires and LinkedIn solo creators, I'm looking at them and I see their comments in my feed, and they all go, "Oh, I'm a millionaire and I'm here taking photos and videos at 2 p.m. from my backyard. Oh, I'm making this much money and I only work a couple of hours a day." And I'm like, you know what? This sounds a little bit of a false reality that you all are portraying. Or
Yes.
maybe you are a millionaire and you're able then to staff all of the people helping you, like there are agencies that can do that for you. So would you be open to demystify a little bit of this for us? Because I think people need to know what they're getting into. I really appreciate what you said when you said, listen, I left Wall Street where probably I was making millions, but I was still working so hard, focused and disciplined, and being at it. Like, it's not glossy magazines and polished podcasts. So can you make that a little bit more real for the people that are listening?
Yeah. So for me, and this might be triggering, but I'm just going to speak from the heart. It's the only way I know how. I would rather work 80 hours a week and make a little bit less money for myself because I'm building something than work less and make a little bit more for somebody else because it's their dream and essentially we're disposable. And so it's very true. When you look on social media, you'll see a lot of people from their laptop on Bali. Oh, this is the life, right? Entrepreneurship, freedom, and so forth. I don't know about that. And there's a whole chapter in the book called The Truth About Entrepreneurship, like I said a little bit earlier. And it takes everything you got in the beginning to get it up and running. And there is an irresistible, irreplaceable season of grind, no matter what, whether it was Apple, Disney, Amazon. I mean, whether you guys are starting your own thing, it takes everything you got in the beginning to get it off the ground and to put yourself out there, let people know about it, make people care, refine, make mistakes, get back up, and so forth. And so a lot of the stuff that you see on entrepreneurship, they're either a little bit further ahead or they're not telling the whole truth, if I'm being honest. And let's just keep it real, right? Like there's so much that goes into it. And again, I just want to reiterate, it's absolutely worth it. It'll change your life. You'll be able to live a life of impact, have great relationships, make as much money as you possibly want because there's no cap, create freedom and all that stuff. But that doesn't happen without work ethic. You got to give this thing everything you got. And then once you get to a place where there's a season of harvest and a season of growth, after you plant all the seeds and you're nourishing them and so forth, like I said, you can work a little bit smarter. You can hire, you can scale, you can delegate, and so forth. But in the beginning, you want to negotiate the price in advance because there is a ton of sacrifice. And if it was easy, everybody would do it.
I'd love to understand kind of the emotional side to that hard work because that makes it feel to me amazing. I love to work hard. Great, I can work hard. What I struggle with is the emotions that come along with that, almost the human side of like, all right, I'm going to spend 80 hours working. And unfortunately for me, all 80 hours, week after week after week after week, are not the same emotional state of, I can do it. I know I'm focused in the great direction. Sometimes I get discouraged. Sometimes I get depressed. Sometimes I'm elated and I am on a high. And that roller coaster of emotions, I'm curious if you experienced that as well. Because while it is super encouraging to hear, like, yeah, I'm willing to put in, this is about grit, this is about hard work. A lot of that is the actions. But the human side, often that I struggle the most with is, keeping the actions sustained because of very different emotions along the way.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was just having a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, and they asked me like, "What advice would you give?" Because they're stepping out and starting their own thing, and I said, "Never get too high and never get too low." So when things are going amazing and you close that 7-figure deal and you think that you're on top of the world, don't get too high because that's not sustainable. Not every day, at least. And when you look, I had a day yesterday, if I'm being honest, and out of 365 days a year, probably 350, I'm on fire. I'm doing my thing. Yesterday, for whatever reason, I let something bother me, and I was a little bit in a lowered frequency. And it's like, you ever have one of those days that you just wish you could like erase or forget? I wasn't my best self, but I took my own advice, and instead of worrying like, how am I going to get through the day? I'm like, all right, I'm in a little bit lowered state right now. All the systems that I have in place don't seem to be working. Let me just forget about winning the day. Let me just win the next activity, right? Let me just give everything I got to this next call. And then after that, I'm going to give everything I got to walk in my puppy, not bring my phone, just be present with him. And literally every single task. And eventually I was able to snap out of it and I ended up turning it into a really good day. So look, you got to give yourself grace. We're humans, or we're a soul and the spirit having a human experience, and you will have moments, but just understand they don't last forever. Not the great days and not the bad days. So you want to keep your emotional state somewhat in control. And then obviously it's good to have somebody that you can vent to. Like my fiance has become my therapist, and she's like, all right, enough. I'm like, I don't even want her to speak. I just want to get some things off my chest. So that's good too.
So this is so interesting. I loved this tagline, winning the next activity,
Mm-hmm.
because we're always so focused on the big thing, the big thing, the big thing, whereas it helps so much in cutting it in pieces. Like even in the corporate environment, it really helps if you're a manager, if you're listening to this as an individual contributor, it really helps to cut down the small activities and focus on the win, because then the win is going to raise your vibration again and put you in a high state. This is a yes no question, so I'm just going to ask it.
Okay.
Do you have people from your previous life that they contact you or they tell you, oh my God, Craig, what you've done? Like, are you still in relationship with that side of the world? And how do they feel about what you're doing?
That's a good one. I think when I started, first of all, to be clear, I don't have so much in common with people from my past life. When I say past life, like before I reinvented myself, and it's not anything against them. I just totally reinvented myself, like my personality, like my interests, my focus. I'm just a different cat. I'm not the same cat I was 3 months ago. I'm just growing so rapidly. I'm obsessed with this stuff. And as a result, I just don't have as much in common with them anymore. And also because when I stepped into this, I made one promise that I would be my true, weird, authentic self for the first time in my life. I knew I wouldn't be for everybody, but at least if I failed being myself. I realize now exactly who I am and so forth. And so I love everyone from my past. I wish them nothing but the best. But right now, the people that I want to be around are people like you guys and people in my network now that are just like always talking about growth and doing big things and entrepreneur. I just love that. And look, in the beginning, when I started putting out content, a lot of people from my past were like, oh, this is great. Don't stop. Love it. I think in their minds, so like, I don't know what he's doing, but it's cute. And then all of a sudden it started to really take off. And I don't think it was so cute anymore. And I never really heard from a lot of them again. I stay in touch with some people from my past and I love them and so forth. But I think that if I'm being honest, a lot of people, as you continue to step into something new and really spread your wings, I think they might resent you, but it has really nothing to do with you. It's kind of like a mirror on them, and they see in you somebody that's really going for it and being bold and living life to the fullest. And I think sadly, most people don't have the gut or courage to really do that. And as a result, it makes them feel some type of way. That's just a little bit of my assumption with people that might hate on you or whatever the case may be from your past. And that's why I want to encourage everybody to find out what you love and take a shot. But kind of a long-winded answer, because you asked for like a one-word answer. I don't have as much in common with people from that season of life. Does not mean that I'm better, they're worse, nothing like that. I think we're just kind of going in different directions.
I'm curious to understand how you maintain that sense of community, because I love, and I'm with you actually, on like, I want to spend time with these people. These are my people. This gives me energy. It's fun. It's growth oriented. Love it. And part of what you said, I'm a different person than I was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Seems to touch on this topic. Have you ever heard the phrase that we're in an epidemic of loneliness? Like, this is quite a topic out in the zeitgeist that sadly, the more connected, in quotes, social media, all of this, that the world becomes, the more disconnected we actually get in terms of relationships, friendships, community. And a little bit of that, like, I'm changing so rapidly, I don't have much in common with folks from the past. I wonder if there is any of this loneliness that you have to combat, or if you're, intentional about that. And how do you find your people? How do you find the people that you want to connect with and then stoke real, meaningful, deep relationships? Because I will say, a lot of the world we've been talking about of social media, influencer, posting, all this, that is not the world of true connection. That is not the world of real, deep friendships. It's wonderful. It can be inspiring. It can be all that. But, are they really, like the people that are going to be your people when you're 80 years old?
Right. Yeah, I like that a lot. The truth about entrepreneurship is it can be a bit lonely, right? Because a lot of people from your life up until this point aren't going to understand, or maybe they don't vibe with it, or they can't really connect with it. And so it's so important for us as entrepreneurs to find our tribe. It's one of the reasons why we have our community, the CLS membership. We have 600 people in there. And I love to bring people together. I'm all about collaboration. I think no egos. There's enough for everybody to win big, and everybody should be supporting each other and elevating each other. And the truth is, and people don't talk about this enough, as an adult, you have to seek that out. Like, I imagine, I don't have kids yet. I'm engaged, God willing. I can't wait to be a dad, hopefully. But at some point, maybe you'll start making friends with like your kids' friends, parents, and stuff like that. But as an entrepreneur, you really have to make the effort and be intentional and seek out tribe, community, like-minded individuals and so forth, so you could build that connection with or share some of those common interests. 100%. That's something that you have to put intention into.
Mm. Can you tell us a little bit more what CLS membership is? I know you mentioned the acronym. I assume part of it is your name, but and that got me curious.
Yeah, when I started this, and remember I said I was strange, it hit me like a nunchuck to the throat. I got a download in the beginning of the pandemic, and I created the brand CLS, and it stands for technically Cultivate Lasting Symphony. I always like the word symphony. Just to me, it feels like an orchestra, all playing in tempo. And then obviously it's also a play on my initials, Craig landed Siegel. But now it's kind of taking on a life of its own of CLS and so forth. And the membership, look, when I first started this, I had to put my ego aside and realize I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know a whole lot. And so I started getting in the rooms of people that weren't necessarily better than me, but were a little bit further ahead. And it was so contagious to me. It started to open up neural pathways. I thought bigger. I started to play bigger. I had more creativity and strategies. And because I saw how valuable that was, I started my own community. We have arguably the fastest growing community in the space. It's called the CLS membership. And basically, we meet 3 Wednesdays a month on a live Zoom for an hour. And I'll come in and I'll pour into the group coaching nuggets, mindset, entrepreneurship, branding, all the things. We bring on big guest speakers as well. My favorite part is we have a private group and chat where everybody's just connecting and networking and supporting each other. And so when Jeff asked the question, like, is this something you have to be intentional with? Yes, it is. And I realized that from the beginning. That's why I kind of created my own, because we need more of that out there, more collaboration and places where we can be around like-minded individuals with similar interests.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I know we are approaching the end of this. Literally, these were the fastest 30 minutes of the day, of the week, probably, of the month.
I would agree. It's great.
But that's how it feels when you are around like-minded people
That's
talking about
correct.
bigger things in life. So, Jeff, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah, so we always end, Craig, by asking for a piece of advice, but I'd love to just, because you actually shared a piece of advice earlier, but I want to pick up on this idea of community and maybe ask you, for folks listening, what advice would you give to them about conquering that epidemic of loneliness and being intentional about connectedness? How should they think about doing that?
Literally just what we said. I would say seek out people that are either where you want to be or are doing something similar, and do everything you can to build a friendship, build a relationship. Ask if you can grab a cup of coffee with them. Maybe it's a virtual space. Get in the room. Do whatever that you can to get around that frequency and that vibration. And so, for me, one of the things that I did here in New York is because, most of my community nowadays is virtually. I built this thing in the pandemic, and that's great. But also, what about that human touch, right? That connection and so forth. And so this year I got a membership at Soho House here in New York, as Nadia knows. And I was actually there this morning. And I go there a couple times a week. I'll take meetings there. And with Soho House, it's a certain type of CAD. It's like for entrepreneurs and creatives and so forth. And you just have this feeling like when you're there, like everybody that's here is doing something kind of big. It's just a good feeling. At least for me, it's an energy. And so I was intentional and I got a membership there and I met some great people there just already. And I've only had it for a year and so forth. So whether it's doing something like that or virtually going into a group or getting in a mastermind or hiring a coach, anything of the sort that can get you around that energy that will elevate you.
I love, because eventually I believe we are in this walk of life by ourselves, yet we are souls and flesh and personalities that we need others. We're animals, and I don't know any animal that runs solo for all of their lives.
Right.
There are moments, but they have other herds or flocks or whatever they are. So I really, really like what you said. Craig, how can people find you and how can they join your mastermind should they want to? What are the nuggets that we can point people your way?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I would say anywhere in social media at Craig Siegel _CLS, anywhere you listen to podcasts, the CLS Experience, anywhere you buy books, the Reinvention Formula. And as Nadia knows, if you like free inspirational nuggets throughout the week, and you live in the US, you could shoot us a text. It's totally free at 917-634-3796. And maybe text me the word Nadia or Jeff so I know that you heard it here.
I'll tell you, the messages that I get every week, they're amazing.
Thank you. So glad.
Thank you for
Amazing. Well,
coming.
all that will be in the show notes as well. So go there if you want these links real easily. Craig, huge thank you. Congratulations and good luck as you continue this journey. Nadia and I are going to be cheering with you and riding along right next to you.
And likewise, this was awesome, guys. Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to building a relationship with both of you.
Bye. See you Tuesday. Okay, Jeff, here we are with our reflections. So I'm going to ask you the question, which is, what are you taking away from this conversation?
Well, I loved the conversation in general. I think we said it, to Craig, which I'm glad that we got the chance to thank him for that. But it has just been a crazy week. We're reaching the end of the year. We're recording this in December. My birthday's tomorrow, but I feel like I'm going into even the birthday just like I want a relaxing time. And this was such an energizer overall for me. So really enjoyed just spending time with him, hearing his views on life and success entrepreneurship. But actually the main takeaway for me had to be the conversation around community and loneliness, because we haven't had that conversation on this podcast yet. And I think it wouldn't be justice to the idea of 99 humans if we didn't talk about the idea of being intentional and combating loneliness, because unfortunately it's something that we all struggle with and seem to be struggling with as a society a whole lot more than we have historically. So I thought that was really valuable to hear such a successful rock star like Craig be honest about how loneliness and entrepreneurship kind of go hand in hand. And then to actually get into some of the tactical tips that have worked for him in combating that and building community and finding, some things that actually are working for him that add meat to the idea of, yeah, you got to be intentional to have friends. Like, okay, but how? That doesn't really seem all that easy since we're all struggling.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
What about you, Nadia? What's your main takeaway?
I could say the entire minute of the conversation. I mean, you know how much I love this stuff. And, there was the point when he started talking about dreams and things. And as you said, this past week and this past 2 weeks and probably this past month have been so tough, so tough. And I have days that I forget about my dreams. And those are the days that are the most draining in the end, because eventually what happens is that my dreams are keeping me afloat in this moment of life where I have so many demands across the board. And I have kids, and I'm the moment in my life where, as a woman, I'm going through hormonal transformations, and at work, and the economy, and my clients, like all of it. And what he said about seeking the people that are doing and vibrating and the same. So I'm connecting to your community thing because, look, I just want to be very real. I wish I could become Oprah tomorrow, but I need my 9 to 5. I want to stay in my 9 to 5. I'm actually very good in my 9 to 5. I love the company and I love the people and I love my clients and I'm amazing in doing what I'm doing. So his point of saying whatever it is that you're doing, do it amazingly well, checked. At the same time, I need something more.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be connected to a bigger purpose. I need to be connected to something deeper and higher. Like, that element I cannot, like, once I knew that I needed it, I cannot get rid of it anymore, which is a good thing, I believe. And
I
what is
think
that? Sorry.
No, I think you're right. It's making me think of there's an old NYU professor. He's not a professor anymore. That's why I use the word old. Super interesting guy named Scott Galloway, and he talks about how getting good at something also creates passion. And so I think that's something that I see in you is you are incredible at your job, and that also lights a little bit of a fire around it. And I think that's interesting too, because it isn't always, okay, what are you passionate about at 5 years old? That's what you should be doing. You can create new passions as well. So here's to you, and succeeding in that 9 to 5 and being proud and keeping it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I'll say so going back to the takeaway is finding the people with your vibration. I mean, even having this gig with you on a Friday, for me, that is what it is, in finding the people that have your same vibration, because that gives you much more fuel to then keep going in whatever stage in life you're at. And so I want to salute Greg, I want to salute you, and I want to really encourage our listeners to go and find your tribe. I will never stop saying that enough. And finding the space to be with your tribe, because that's what is going to keep you going a long way in whatever it is you're doing. So I took a long way to saying it, but that's what it was.
I love it. I love it. Well, huge thanks to Craig. It's so good to see you, Nadia. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give us 5-star review, share it with a friend. It really does make a difference. And we can't wait to catch you on the next 99 Humans.
Yes. Bye, everybody. Ciao. Ciao, Jeff.
Bye.